Instead of writing an arc about the symbiote making Peter stronger and angrier, as many people would expect them to, the writers told a story about Peter finally giving in to his greatest temptation, and the man who had already saved him from it once before being the one to help him overcome it for good.
I am the spectacular Spider-Man!
To understand why the symbiote's manipulation works, we first need to understand who Peter Parker is, beyond the standard origin story that we all know. Because in the Marvel Universe, Peter Parker's life being miserable is like gravity. It's a constant that holds the whole goddamn universe together. If people around him aren't always dying, his love life is in shambles, and if that's in a good place, don't even worry about it. It's not gonna last long. Peter Parker is every writer's punching bag, and Spider-Man fans know this well. But what keeps you rooting for him is that he always finds a way to get back up and keep moving forward. He doesn't give up and resign himself to living a terrible life. And even when he does, it doesn't last long. He remains hopeful and optimistic, trying his best to live a good, happy life. Spectacular Spider-Man kept this aspect of Peter's character by starting the show off with a conflict that leaves a decision hanging over Peter's head for the whole first season. Because while Peter may be optimistic, that optimism is constantly being tested by the reality of his situation. Episode 3 of Season 1 demonstrates this perfectly. The episode starts with Spider-Man celebrating that he stopped the bad guys, got pictures for the Bugle, and will be on time for Aunt May's curfew. Things were finally going his way. But as the episode progresses, things start to fall apart. Dr. Connors, the man who gave him his apprenticeship, turns himself into a lizard. Everyone works together to create a gene cleanser to save him. They give it to Spidey, and he's able to use it to bring Connors back. However, because Pete seemingly left to go win the Bugle's photo contest, instead of helping everyone develop the gene cleanser to cure Kurt, they all think he's scum, and he loses that apprenticeship. Peter then leaves the lab and grabs the gene cleanser on his way out. And when he gets home, he's just sick of it all, lamenting the fact that he never chose to have a strict 10 p.m. curfew that he can't stick to. He never chose to have friends that think he's dirt, and he never chose to have those powers. But he can choose to remove them. Because from Peter's perspective, they're the problem. He did everything right. He saved people, he saved Connors, he saved the day. And he still lost in the end. But then he sees the photo of Uncle Ben, and he's reminded of why he's Spider-Man. He's reminded of the good he does. The fact that the value of Spider-Man isn't measured by what he gets out of it, but by the impact he has on the world. So he instead decides to keep the gene cleanser under his desk, and only use it when the world no longer needs the webhead. This episode doesn't end with Peter choosing to continue being Spider-Man. It ends with him choosing to not give it up yet. And the decision of whether to go back to living a normal life or keep being a hero looms over his head for the rest of the season. So when the symbiote comes along, it's not even trying to tell Peter that his life sucks. Because it doesn't have to.
What are you doing? You tell the truth and they'll take the suit away, and you need its power to help people.
What makes the symbiote so difficult for Pete to get rid of in the beginning of every Black Suit arc is the fact that in some ways, the suit does actually make his life better. At first, it's small things, making him stronger, increasing the range of his webs, helping him balance when he's chasing a boat. It does just enough for Peter to think that even though it is stolen, it would be a bad idea for him to return it, because it allows him to do even more good. As time goes on though, things begin to escalate. The suit takes over his body and stops the Sinister Six. It even takes pictures of the fight and even sends them to Jonah, while Pete himself got to rest and literally sleep through the fight. Pete gets to reap the rewards of being Spider-Man without having to endure the pressure and stress of having to take on the villains himself. He gets to breathe. And when Aunt May gets hospitalized and Pete has to contend with some enormous medical bills, the suit convinces him to get a job from Tombstone, so that being Spider-Man can finally come with some monetary benefit. And the best part about all of this is that Peter deserves it. And I don't just mean that that's how he feels. I mean that objectively, if there is one hero in all of fiction that fully deserves to never have to worry about money and deserve the chance to get some rest, it's Spider-Man. He deals with a lot of the same crap that other heroes have to deal with, except without the money, without the ability to balance his life, and without the luxury of only having to face his villains once. The one thing he gets is the honor of getting to say that he's been fucked by life. Which is why I often like to parallel the black suit arc with Pete's actions when he first gets powers. In both instances, Peter has lost a lot, and his life is just getting worse. The first being him having lost his parents, him being bullied by Flash, and him spending most of his sophomore year of high school stuffed in a locker. And the second being how he lost Uncle Ben, lost his oldest friend, and Aunt May is now lying in a hospital bed. Pete is at a low point in his life, and then gets powers that allow him to do things that he never even imagined were possible. So he figures he spent so much of his life suffering and being the underdog that maybe it's finally his turn. It's time for him to enjoy all the good things that life has to offer. And after all he's been through, hasn't he earned that much? He then tries to use his newfound abilities to make his life just a little bit easier. But in both cases, he would have to sell his soul. What makes the black suit so dangerously manipulative isn't that it gives Pete power. It's that it takes advantage of Pete's desire to just live a good, happy life. A life in which he finally gets to just breathe. A life that he gets to enjoy. And that's where the writing for this show starts treating the suit less like a fun power-up and more like a toxic partner. The suit started off by making Pete's life better, by making it easier. Sure, it crossed a boundary or two, but you can't argue the results. Suddenly, it starts allowing Peter to express feelings that he never would have ordinarily, like being annoyed at Jameson's greed and how the man treats him like crap. Which, fair enough. But then, when Eddie is rightfully annoyed at Peter for seemingly taking pictures of Spider-Man stealing the symbiote instead of calling the police, the suit tells Spidey that he doesn't need his oldest friend because he's got the cool new suit and a way to vent his frustrations. And the thing that's so brilliant about the writing here is that most of this is true. Jonah does treat him like crap, and Peter doesn't deserve to be hated for taking pictures that night because he was too busy trying to stop Black Cat from stealing it. So even though the symbiote is slowly pushing away the people in his life, it's people that you could easily argue don't deserve Peter's kindness, patience, and understanding. When it really started to feel like a toxic relationship is when Aunt May got a heart attack, and Peter had a lot of hospital bills to pay. Gwen, MJ, Liz, and the rest of Peter's friends try to support him, but he blows them off because all he needs is the suit and a job. At this point, the suit has not only managed to show Peter that he needs it, but it's even managed to isolate him from everyone who might have pushed Peter to reflect on the change in his behavior and maybe get rid of the symbiote. Almost everyone. Side note, I love this version of Flash Thompson. This guy is literally my favorite character in the entire show. So if y'all want me to do a full deep dive on how he went from being an arrogant jerk to being a pretty good guy and friend, make sure to get this video to 5,000 likes. Back to the video. I love how Flash was the person to get Pete to realize that he was being a dick. Because of all the characters in this show, besides Eddie, Flash is the only one who doesn't care about potentially hurting Peter. So he's the only one who isn't trying to be sensitive and understanding, which results in him being the only person who can actually be straight with Peter and get him to realize that he's behaving like an ass. Like in a toxic relationship, it took someone on the outside for Pete to notice that he started using the words we and us instead of I and me. But even then, recognizing the problem wasn't enough. Because the best manipulators don't implant new ideas in your mind. They exploit thoughts that you've already had. And by this point, the symbiote had exploited every insecurity, frustration, and resentment that Peter possessed. Which raises an important question. Who could possibly pull him back from the edge? Well, the same man who did it the first time.
I should drop you. Take what you took from Ben Parker. But he wouldn't approve. With great power comes great responsibility.
I've got a hot take. Most people don't fully understand Uncle Ben's words. Or at the very least, they don't understand the words that this version of Uncle Ben said to Peter. And the reason is, as Spider-Man fans, we've been trained over literal decades to associate this man with one phrase. With great power comes great responsibility. However, most people forget what Uncle Ben said just before this.
Just because you can't do something doesn't mean you should.
And I think it's very important to distinguish between the two, because one phrase is about what not to do with the gifts you've been given, and the other is about what you should do with them. And Peter needs both lessons to overcome the symbiote, just like he needed both lessons the first time he was tempted to cross the line. The night that Peter lost his uncle, he had just gotten his powers and was still trying to figure out exactly what to do with them. Having been dealt the short end of the stick his entire life, he, naturally, decided to try to improve that life by entering a wrestling competition and winning $1,000 for his troubles. He obviously wins the competition, but when the time comes to get his money, the promoter tells him that he can only get it if he signs a contract with them. And because Peter was already on the fence about using his powers the way he did, he had actually just wanted to have it be a one-and-done situation, as it was advertised, and he's pissed to learn that it's not. Someone then robs the promoter and runs past Spider-Man while escaping. Spidey decides not to stop him though, because he thinks, it's not my problem. Only for that same person to end up killing Uncle Ben while trying to steal his car. Spidey tracks the guy down and almost kills him before realizing that's not what Uncle Ben would have wanted. The irony in all of this is that Peter spends most of that night violating both of the lessons that would eventually come to define him. Uncle Ben told him that with great power comes great responsibility, and Pete deciding to ignore that indirectly led to Uncle Ben's death. Uncle Ben told him that just because he can do something doesn't mean he should, and Pete deciding to ignore that advice almost led to a man's death. His failure to abide by those lessons that night is what leads to him becoming a hero that never turns a blind eye to someone in need, and the kind of man that knows that having the ability to do something doesn't justify the act of doing it. Right and wrong still apply, no matter how powerful you are. Both lessons are what makes Spider-Man the hero that he is, which is why the symbiote tries to break each of them apart individually in an effort to permanently bond with Peter. The suit started by breaking down the iconic lesson. The suit allowed Peter to save this guy's life. The suit enabled Peter to stop the Sinister Six while minimizing the personal sacrifice. The suit is why he'll now be able to pay for Aunt May's hospital stay. Taking Tombstone's deal simply meant that he doesn't stop ordinary crime, not that he ignores supervillains destroying the city. By all intents and purposes, he would still be a hero. None of this is about him giving it up. But at this point, the symbiote has already convinced Peter that responsibility doesn't have to mean sacrifice, that maybe it's okay for that responsibility to have limits. Because if Peter starts believing that he deserves to put himself first, then dismantling Ben's second lesson becomes so much easier. Suddenly, the question isn't whether Peter should use his powers for personal gain. The question is why he shouldn't. The symbiote has him relive it all. Getting his powers, letting the thief go, him killing Uncle Ben, and Peter catching the killer. It then goes on to ask him,
Why blame yourself? We didn't hurt Uncle Ben. The world took him away from us. The world takes everything we love. There's no one you can trust, Peter Parker. No one except us. Join with us. Make our bond permanent. Together, nothing can stop us, and everything we ever wanted will be ours.
At this point, the symbiote has shown Peter what it can do for him, seemingly changed his life for the better, successfully isolated him from everyone he loves, and when Peter tries to fight back, it has him relive the most traumatic experience of his life, only to ask him, don't you deserve to be happy too? And Peter, hurt, broken, and in pain, has completely forgotten Ben's lessons, why they matter, and the hero that he is. So he reaches out his hand to join the symbiote and become one with the suit. Because for the first time since losing Uncle Ben, Peter is ready to believe it. Ready to believe that the world owes him something. Ready to believe that his suffering justifies giving in. Only for Uncle Ben's memory to show up, to remind Peter of who he is and what he stands for. Right now, Peter wants to give up and resign himself to the fact that his life sucks. And he's sick of having that life be as shitty as it is. Especially when he's got the power that he does. Especially when he's saved so many lives. And especially after all he's sacrificed. But Ben takes the kid back to the last conversation that the two of them shared. Peter being on the fence about using his powers in the wrestling match. And Ben telling him that having power doesn't mean that your actions are justified. And that it's his duty to use those unique talents and abilities to help those around him and make the world a better place. But then the symbiote shows up and says that those words are cute, but they don't change a thing. Ben still died, and Peter still got his uncle ripped away from him. But Ben doesn't really have to say anything in response. He simply goes back to the moment that Peter had the cat burglar dead at rights, holding him outside a window, and then let him go. Only to catch the guy right before he hit the ground. Because he's reminded of Ben's lessons. He's reminded that just because he can do something, it doesn't mean that he should. He's reminded that with great power comes great responsibility. Ben then goes on to show him all the good that he's done with that power, the lives that he's saved, the fruit that responsibility bears. The suit then tries to pull him back in, telling him that yes, there's no denying the good that he's done, but his life still sucks. The symbiote, in an effort to drag Peter down, reminds him of all the awful things in his life. But Ben grabs his nephew and reminds him of all the good, namely, all of the people in his life that make his life spectacular. Gwen, Liz, MJ, Harry, Aunt May, the amazing people who not only make Peter's life worth living, but that he can always count on to have his back when it all becomes too much for him to bear. He doesn't need this alien symbiote, and he never did. Whether they were the girl who had his back when nobody else would, his best friend, or the amazing woman who takes care of him, from the very beginning, the people in his life were all that he needed. Pete then starts fighting back against this alien gunk, and the symbiote tries one last time to drown Peter. But at this point, the suit is already lost. Uncle Ben shows up one last time to pull his nephew up so he can face the suit head on, because Peter will never allow the darkness to consume him. Peter doesn't beat the symbiote by overpowering it. He beats it by remembering who he is, remembering what Uncle Ben taught him, remembering that the world isn't defined by what is taken from him, but by what he's chosen to give back. Peter then destroys the suit and thanks Uncle Ben for pulling him back from the edge and reminding him of who he is and why. But defeating the symbiote isn't the end of Peter's journey, because hidden beneath all of this was a question that had been following him since the very beginning of the series. The truth of why he became Spider-Man in the first place. To honor Uncle Ben. He didn't put the mask on because he'd fully embraced being a hero. He put it on because that's what Uncle Ben would have wanted. Which is all well and good, but it means that Peter became Spider-Man because of what Uncle Ben wanted, not because of what he wanted. And that's why the final episode matters so much. Because for the first time since getting his powers, Peter has to answer a question that no amount of power, responsibility, or guilt can answer for him. Does he actually want to be Spider-Man? And what makes the finale so perfect is that it doesn't answer that question with a speech. It answers it with a choice.
This antidote solved Doc Connor's little lizard problem. I bet it can solve my spider problem too.
At the beginning of the finale, Peter bumps his head on the desk, and the gene cleanser falls on the ground. So Peter is reminded that there's always a way out, and he starts to question exactly why it is that he's chosen to be Spider-Man. Is it really in order to save lives? Or is it for the thrill, the escape? Spidey spends the rest of the episode fighting Venom and doing everything in his power to protect the people he cares about. After all of that, Peter goes home and enjoys a Thanksgiving feast, surrounded by the people he loves. And at the end of the episode, he decides that, yeah, he may let people down, and being Spider-Man may mean that he's not always there when people need him. But even so, Spider-Man isn't a disease, nor is it just some random bug bite. Spider-Man is who he is, a man who never chooses to look the other way when someone needs him, no matter the cost. After having overcome the symbiote once and then rejecting it when it tried to come back to him, he ends the series fully deciding to be Spider-Man. Peter started the series excited to be the webhead, literally one of the few scenes that you'll ever see of him actually being happy to be Spider-Man. The sacrifices that come with being Spider-Man then become too much for him to bear, but he decides not to give it up yet because people still need him. An alien goo then comes along to tell him that it can help. It can help him be the hero that he needs to be, while still getting to live a life free of suffering and constant sacrifice. And right before he gives into that pain, Uncle Ben reminds him of who he is and why. And then he goes on to defeat the symbiote and finally decide to be Spider-Man. Not because it's convenient and not because it's always fun, but because Spider-Man is who he is and who he wants to be. A hero.